In our headlines on this Thursday, July 16th, here in South Korea. Artificial intelligence takes center stage as the Science Ministry focuses its briefing on sharing the importance of open and safe access. And the central bank raises its benchmark interest rate for the first time in over 3 years by 25 basis points to 2.75% to rein in inflation. Meanwhile, South Korea and the U.S. conduct a major exercise that seeks to ensure the flow of combat supplies in the face of port closures during wartime. President Lee Jae-myung believes South Korea can harness its strengths and address its shortcomings to secure a global lead in artificial intelligence. Remarks to this end were made during a related briefing by the Science Ministry today. Our Song Yu-jin reports.
With AI transforming nearly every aspect of society, President Lee Jae-myung says those who prepare first will gain a competitive edge.
어쨌든 그 강점들을 잘 활용하고 우리가 가진 약점들을 잘 보완하면 또 우리가 하기에 따라서 뛰어난 추격자가 아니라 뛰어난 선도자가 될 수도 있겠다.
Lee made the remarks on Thursday as government ministries continued a series of policy briefings to the president. A key priority of the Ministry of Science and ICT is strengthening Korea's AI autonomy while ensuring the technology is both safe and widely accessible. One of the government's goals is to develop a sovereign AI model, a homegrown large language model built with homegrown technology and data, rather than relying on foreign platforms.
Frontier models like Mythos are advanced enough to address security challenges more effectively. That's why Korea also needs to develop its own advanced frontier-level AI model.
The ministry says it aims to begin developing one next year. President Lee also called for Korea to build a more open AI cooperation network by making homegrown AI models adaptable to different languages.
지금 초기 단계부터 가능한 협업 시스템을 좀 만들어 놓을 필요가 있지 않을까. 되는 데부터라도 그냥 해서 나중에 수출한다고 생각하지 말고.
At the same time, Lee stressed the need for stronger safeguards against the growing misuse of AI, particularly deepfakes. Currently, AI developers and service providers must disclose when images or videos are generated using AI. However, individuals who spread such content are not subject to the same requirement. Enforcement of fines for failing to label AI-generated content under Korea's Basic AI Act, which took effect this January, has been postponed for 1 year. With the first 2 days of the 4-day ministry briefings now over, the Blue House says the remaining sessions, including the Foreign, Defense, and Culture Ministries, will take place in early August. 송유진, 아리랑 뉴스.
And as widely expected, the Bank of Korea has raised its benchmark interest rate by 25 basis points to usher in the first rate hike in over 3 years to curb inflation. Our Kim Bo-kyung files this report.
The Bank of Korea has raised its benchmark interest rate by a quarter percentage point to 2.75%, marking the very first rate hike since January 2023. This decision by the Monetary Policy Board meeting on Thursday was unanimously backed by all 7 board members. The BOK had previously kept the rate unchanged since May 2025, following a cumulative 1% of rate cuts starting in October 2024. Thursday's rate hike was widely expected, as the BOK had signaled several times that it would raise rates to deal with inflationary pressure. Due to higher oil prices caused by the war in the Middle East, consumer prices posted year-on-year increases of over 3% for 2 consecutive months in May and June, which is well above the target inflation rate of 2%. The governor says that inflation is expected to remain high for a considerable time.
On the supply side, despite lower global oil prices, the effects of earlier cost increases and the weak exchange rate are expected to persist for some time. On the demand side, inflationary pressures are likely to build as the semiconductor boom spills over into domestic demand.
Meanwhile, as exports and investment continue to grow strongly, mainly due to the semiconductor sector, South Korea's growth rate for this year is expected to considerably exceed the May forecast of 2.6%, easing concerns that a rate hike could slow the economy.
The domestic economy is expected to remain on a solid growth path, supported by strong exports and investment driven by the semiconductor boom, along with a broadening recovery in private consumption as income conditions improve.
Rising household debt, soaring housing prices, and the weak Korean won compared to the US dollar also contributed to the board's decision. The question now is, how much more will the central bank tighten monetary policy in the coming months? Many forecast the next base rate increase to come in October, though some believe there could be a back-to-back hike in as early as August. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, it's been a roller coaster ride on the local bourse this week, with the benchmark KOSPI closing trade on this Thursday down over 6% as foreign and institutional investors engage in a selling spree. In fact, rapid retreats 10 minutes into the start of the session this morning triggered a sell-side sidecar pausing trade for 5 minutes. Tech giants took a heavy beating today, with Samsung Electronics plunging over 8% and SK Hynix dropping some 11%. Also this week, Seoul and Washington conducted a major drill that seeks to ensure the flow of critical supplies in the face of port closures during wartime. Our defense correspondent Park Gun-woo files this report from the ground.
Imagine the country's major seaports have been blocked off while troops still need ammunition and fuel. To keep supplies flowing, South Korean and U.S. forces are practicing how to deliver them directly across the shoreline. The first combined joint logistics over the shore exercise, or CJ LOTS, in 9 years took place in Pohang in the southeast. Behind me, military equipment is being brought ashore using a temporary port. The goal here isn't just simply unloading supplies, but it's also proving that Allied forces can continue moving equipment even if key ports become unusable during wartime. Military officials say preventing a drop-off in support is what keeps combat operations going.
Sustained support is critically important in war. This exercise allows South Korean and US forces to test their interoperability in moving supplies from the sea to land under limited conditions, and then transporting them by air and ground to combat units.
The Allies used the South Korean Navy's Joint Logistics Over-the-Shore system introduced last year to unload equipment and supplies from vessels and move them onto land. The training also tests how smoothly the two militaries can operate as one force.
Every time we train together, we strengthen interoperability, we build trust, and we reinforce the combined capabilities that underpins the strong ROK-U.S. alliance.
The exercise is one part of the wider 4-day 2026 Combined Joint Sustainment Training, led by the Republic of Korea U.S. Combined Forces Command through Thursday. Around 4,400 South Korean and U.S. personnel are taking part, along with around 600 pieces of equipment, including ships and aircraft, making it the largest exercise of its kind. But sustainment does not stop with moving equipment. It also means treating and evacuating wounded troops. The Allies simulated a scenario involving over 100 troops. Known as the Dragon Lift Drill, it demonstrated how those wounded could receive emergency treatment before being rapidly transferred to civilian medical facilities. Military officials say the drills are designed to ensure the alliance can continue sustaining combat operations even when key infrastructure is disrupted, reinforcing its fight-tonight readiness posture. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News, Pohang.
Meanwhile, the Lee Jae-myung administration and the ruling Democratic Party have agreed to merge the Army, Navy and Air Force academies into a single 4-year Korea Armed Forces Academy in the city of Daejeon. According to Defense Minister An Kyu-baek, the merger, a presidential campaign pledge, strives to prepare officers for modern multi-domain warfare while tackling duplication. The ruling party, for its part, has vowed to hammer out the legal framework needed for the merger, as well as relevant funding in the 2027 budget. Critics, including opposition, politicians and military alumni groups, argue the overhaul could weaken each service's professional identity and training traditions. In other news now, the future of urban transport is on display in the city of Incheon, where flying taxis are edging closer to takeoff. Our Daejeon was there.
The answer to heavy traffic may soon lie in the skies. A domestically developed urban air mobility aircraft has been unveiled to the public ahead of a flight demonstration on Wednesday. Urban air mobility, or UAM, is a new form of transportation that uses highly automated electric aircraft to carry passengers and cargo over relatively short distances. According to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, UAM can cut travel times in congested downtown Seoul by 76%. Instead of getting stuck into morning traffic, imagine hopping into this UAM vehicle and soaring above the city. The government aims to commercialize UAM by 2028, with testing of the technology already underway. Korea Drone and UAM Expo 2026 opened Wednesday, showcasing advanced technologies and a new vision for the future of aviation. The UAM Pavilion offers a range of hands-on programs for visitors. They can experience what it might be like to travel by UAM in 2028. Using a flight simulator, visitors can take a virtual journey over Jeju Island and see its major landmarks from the air.
Flying over downtown Jeju felt incredibly realistic. It was almost like being on an actual flight.
The future of drones is also on full display. In the corporate pavilion, Korean Air showcased its Loyal Wingman drone, an unmanned military aircraft that works as a bodyguard, protecting fighter jets flown by humans. Although still under development, the final goal is to equip this drone with AI pilot technologies.
Our ultimate goal is to secure a leading position in the unmanned aerial vehicle market, both at home and abroad.
Meanwhile, Incheon Metropolitan City has introduced drones boosting local safety and disaster response. Starting this year, the city has been utilizing them to inspect vacant houses for safety and prevent heatwave damage, with plans to expand the initiative in the future. Efforts are accelerating to bring this next-generation air mobility technologies into everyday life. Held under the theme Reshaping Daily Life, Designing the Future, Korea Drone and UAM Expo 2026 runs through Friday. 이주연, 아리랑 뉴스.
The U.S. and Iran traded fresh fire overnight as tensions continue to escalate across the Middle East. Our Kim Jun-ong has the latest.
The United States launched additional strikes against Iran on Wednesday evening local time as the renewed exchange of attacks entered a fifth straight day. U.S. Central Command posted on social media that the latest attacks were aimed at weakening Iran's ability to threaten ships in the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes followed Tehran's claim that it had hit U.S. military targets across the region, including in Bahrain and Kuwait. Earlier the same day, U.S. forces carried out an early morning missile strike on Greater Toom, an island Iran uses to monitor shipping through the Persian Gulf. Late on Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump had threatened strikes on Iranian bridges and power plants if Tehran failed to return to talks next week. Asked the following day whether he would set a deadline, he declined but repeated his warning.
I don't like giving deadlines, but they pretty much know the story. They better behave.
He later said Iran wants to settle so badly, but added that Washington would decide whether to reach a deal or just finish it off. Meanwhile, Iran has shown no sign of backing down. Iran's lead negotiator Mohammad Bagher Khalibaf said on Wednesday that Tehran had no reason to honor its memorandum of understanding with Washington if Iran saw no benefit from it. He added that its national security lies in preserving its own arrangements over the Strait of Hormuz. Still, he left the door open to negotiations, calling for closer coordination between military action and diplomacy. He described war and diplomacy as two ways to defend Iran's national interests, saying negotiations at this stage do not amount to capitulation. Kim Jun-ho, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed prospects of South Korean shipbuilders playing a pivotal part in rebuilding America's naval fleet. Our Lee Seung-jae covers his latest remarks.
U.S. President Donald Trump says his administration will likely consider working with South Korean and other foreign companies as part of efforts to strengthen the U.S. Navy through expanded shipbuilding cooperation. Speaking at the Defense and Innovation Summit at the U.S. Army War College in Pennsylvania on Wednesday, Trump said the United States needs to rebuild its shipbuilding capacity, noting that while the U.S. still has the world's strongest Navy, many of its vessels are aging. He added that Washington will not only build more ships domestically, but will also probably purchase some vessels built overseas, saying the U.S. needs a much larger fleet.
So we're going to probably look at some of these companies that are coming in from South Korea and other places, and they're working with us on ships. And we're going to also buy some ships that are made outside of the area.
However, Trump did not clarify what he meant by ships being made outside of the area. The remarks come as Washington looks to deepen cooperation with South Korea, which is home to some of the world's largest and most advanced shipbuilders. Earlier this month, the South Korean presidential office said Trump appears open to the possibility of U.S. naval vessels being built in South Korea. The issue was also reportedly discussed during Trump's meeting with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung on the sidelines of the G7 summit in France last month, highlighting growing interest in expanding bilateral cooperation in the defense and shipbuilding sectors. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korean air conditioners are witnessing a tangible surge in European demand amid the sweltering heat in the West this summer. Our Park Chae-ryung files this report.
Record-breaking heat continues to grip Europe. But air conditioning is still uncommon in many homes, and air conditioners are selling out across parts of the continent. The trend is being felt by Korean manufacturers. They say their sales in Europe have increased significantly.
Driven by record-breaking heat waves across Europe, demand for cooling solutions increased significantly, leading to double-digit year-over-year growth in residential air conditioner sales across Europe, particularly in Southern and Western Europe.
Portable air conditioners are among the products seeing particularly strong demand. Unlike conventional air conditioners, these units require no outdoor compressor or major installation work. That makes them a practical option for renters and people living in older European buildings. A Korean manufacturer, Weltem, says demand in Europe has been stronger than expected this summer.
Sales of portable air conditioners in Europe are up about 15% from last year. Even though summer is not over yet, all units for Europe have already sold out.
However, Korean manufacturers face price competition, particularly from Chinese rivals, as they seek a larger share of the rapidly expanding market. According to MBC, some Chinese companies are selling air conditioners at prices up to 30% lower than those of Korean companies, and their sales have more than doubled from last year as well. Nevertheless, Korean manufacturers say production will remain at peak levels through August as demand for cooling in Europe continues to rise. The question now is whether Korean manufacturers can remain competitive with lower-priced rivals increasing their market share. Park Chae-ryung, Arirang News.
And as the global race to return to the moon gathers pace, one American startup is taking the competition a step further with plans to open the world's first lunar hotel just 6 years from now. Our Kim Seon covers this ambitious project and more.
A U.S. startup has unveiled plans to open a moon hotel in 2032. It has even launched a reservation page to begin attracting potential guests. Some critics say it is no more than a publicity stunt designed to draw attention rather than offer a realistic plan. But the proposal is detailed enough that it may be too early to dismiss it outright. The European Space Agency is working on ways to make bricks using lunar soil and 3D printing technology. A wide range of research is also underway to make long-term survival on the moon possible. And SMRs are now part of the conversation as humans will need a stable source of energy on the lunar surface. After China and Russia announced plans to deploy a nuclear power plant on the moon in the 2030s, the United States set its own target for 2030, concerning that it could fall behind.
Day on the moon lasts a month. There's two weeks of sunlight, 2 weeks of darkness. And so you can put solar panels on one side and on the other.
Drinking water and air could be produced by using electricity to break down the abundant ice found on the moon. The hydrogen generated in that process could also be reused as fuel for spacecraft and other purposes.
We could turn that frozen ice into liquid water for drinking and then convert it and split it into oxygen and hydrogen for breathing and for fuel.
When and how these technologies begin to bear fruit could shape the next chapter of lunar exploration and perhaps the future of humanity beyond Earth. Kim Seoyoung, Arirang News.
This is the world now. Argentina have reached the World Cup final with a 2-1 comeback win over England. Enzo Fernandez leveled the score in the 85th minute before Lautaro Martinez scored the winner in the 92nd minute, with Lionel Messi providing the assist for both goals. England had taken the lead in the 55th minute with a goal from Anthony Gordon but could not hold on. Argentina will face Spain in Sunday's final in New Jersey. French lawmakers have passed a bill that creates a legal right to assisted dying for adults with incurable illnesses. The law, approved 291 to 241 in the lower house on Wednesday, lets eligible patients receive a lethal substance, which they can self-administer or have administered by a doctor or nurse if unable to do so themselves. Access is limited to French citizens or legal residents suffering from a serious, incurable, and life-threatening illness in an advanced or terminal phase, who experience constant physical or psychological suffering and can make a free and informed choice. Patients must submit a request reviewed by at least 2 doctors and another healthcare professional, then confirm it after a 2-day reflection period. The bill could still be reviewed by France's Constitutional Council. In Canada, wildfire smoke from northwestern Ontario has given Toronto the worst air quality of any major city in the world, with hazardous smoke spreading into the northeastern United States. Environment Canada rated Toronto's air quality at 10+, its highest very high-risk level, with conditions expected to persist through Thursday night. The smoke has reached New York City, where officials urged residents to limit outdoor activity, days ahead of Sunday's World Cup final in nearby New Jersey. Toronto canceled its FIFA Fan Festival and World Cup watch party because of the poor air quality. Shares in SpaceX fell below their $135 initial public offering price for the first time on Wednesday, marking a 4th straight day of declines. The stock has swung sharply since last month's IPO, which raised a record $86 billion and made SpaceX founder Elon Musk the world's first trillionaire. Shares closed just over $135 on Wednesday, down about 1% after climbing above $225 a share in their first month of trading. The stock joined the NASDAQ 100 index last week under a rule change that shortened the eligibility period for newly public companies, bringing in additional investment through index funds. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
We're seeing rain across Chungcheongdo and the southern regions right now, and it'll continue through tomorrow. Rainfall amounts will range from 5 to 80 millimeters in most areas, while the west coast of the Jeollado provinces could see more than 100 millimeters of rain. Then on Saturday, rain will spread across the entire country. The heaviest downpours are likely to be in the morning, especially across the central regions and Gyeongsangbuk-do province. That's because a low developing pressure system will move across Korea throughout the morning, making heavy rain more likely overnight Friday and into Saturday morning. Streams and valleys can rise very quickly after heavy rain, so anyone camping or spending time outdoors should stay alert and put safety first. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 23 degrees Celsius, Daegu 24 and Gwangju 25 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 32 degrees, while Chuncheon, Gyeongju and Jeju will all top out at 31 degrees. The monsoon rain will stick around through Monday next week. Now here's a look at the weather around the world. Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.